Have you ever looked at a woman and sensed something different? Not in her looks, not in her words, but in her spirit. Maybe you've seen her walk through fire with no smoke on her skin. Maybe you've watched her carry betrayal, rejection, heartbreak, and still rise like nothing ever touched her. She isn't lucky. She's marked by heaven, chosen by God. These women don't just survive battles. They were born for them. They're not loud about it. The marks they carry aren't visible to the world, but in the spiritual realm, they shine like fire. These are not the marks of status. They are the signs of divine selection. Isaiah 43:2 says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you." That's not just a promise. It's a prophecy over the lives of chosen women. In this video, we're not just telling stories. We're lifting the veil. We're going deep into the spiritual blueprint that sets these women apart. Why are they misunderstood? Why do they face battles that others don't? Why do their tears become oil and their silence hold wisdom? Because they were never called to fit in. They were set apart. And if something inside you is stirring right now, if your spirit is whispering, "That's me," then this message is for you. You're not broken. You're not forgotten. You've been handpicked by God, refined through fire, and trusted with a purpose that requires scars. Now, as you step forward into this divine role, I invite you to declare your readiness. Type Amen in the comments below as a sign of your acceptance, as a bold statement that you are ready to walk in your God-given identity. And don't go anywhere. Stay with me until the very end, because we'll be closing with a prayer that speaks directly to the warrior within you. Now, let's step deeper. Let's walk further into the fire, because this is where the real transformation begins. If what you've heard so far has stirred something in you, you're not imagining it. That stir is sacred. That restlessness is revelation. You are being reminded of who you truly are. Mark 1. She has a scar that became a sword. There's a kind of strength that cannot be learned from books or borrowed from others. It's forged. It's born in silence, in struggle, in seasons where the world offered no applause, only pain. A chosen woman is not shaped by success. She's carved by suffering. She is the one who didn't just go through the fire. She became fireproof in the process. The world sees her smile and assumes ease. What they don't see are the nights she wept until her chest HHD, the betrayal she buried, the dreams that died in her arms, the versions of herself she had to leave behind. And yet, here she stands, not just intact, but ignited. This is not resilience for resilience's sake. This is divine weaponry. As Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 4:89, "We are hard-pressed on every side but not crushed, perplexed but not in despair, persecuted but not abandoned, struck down but not destroyed." The scar she carries is not a flaw. It's a forge. What once tore her open is now what gives her edge. She has turned agony into authority. What the enemy meant to silence her became the very sound of her testimony. And unlike wounds that fester in bitterness, hers have healed in purpose. Her story is not one of mere survival. It is sacred transformation. Consider Ruth, who lost everything, her husband, her home, her certainty, and still followed Naomi into the unknown. She didn't cling to the past. She leaned into purpose, and in a field she didn't belong to, under a sky she didn't recognize. She was seen by Boaz, but even more, she was seen by God. And through her would come the lineage of Christ. That's what it means to carry this first mark. You don't just wear your scars, you wield them. You don't just walk forward, You slice through darkness with the wisdom your suffering gave you. You don't tell your story for sympathy. You speak it because it's now your sword. So if you've carried pain so heavy it nearly crushed you, but you're still standing stronger, wiser, sharper, you bear this hidden mark. The woman who walks wounded yet worships is the fiercest warrior of all. Mark 2. She lives with divine discontent. Now lean in because this one isn't as obvious. Not all chosen women look broken. Some of them appear to have it all together. Beautiful, blessed, successful, and yet deep inside there is a sacred dissatisfaction they cannot explain. This isn't confusion. It's not ingratitude. It's not failure to appreciate the present. It's divine discontent. It's the quiet ache that rises when you've outgrown your current space, even though it still looks like favor. It's the whisper in your spirit when everyone else says you should be happy, but your soul answers there's more. This isn't rebellion. It's revelation. It's the stirring that comes when heaven is calling you higher. Think of Nehemiah. He had a stable position in a Persian palace, safety, prestige, comfort. And yet, when he heard that Jerusalem's walls were in ruins, something broke in him. That's what divine discontent does. It ruins you for the ordinary. It burdens you for things others ignore. And that burden becomes your calling. Or look at Deborah, a prophetess, a judge, a leader in a time when women were not seen as such. She could have remained in the shade of the palm tree where she offered wisdom. But no, when the time came to war, she didn't just speak, she rose. Because divine discontent doesn't allow you to sit in comfort when there is a kingdom to defend. Hebrews 11 hours, 15 minutes and 16 seconds tells us, if they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. This longing is a holy inheritance. It's what keeps you moving when others settle. It's what keeps you uncomfortable in the palace, because you know the palace is not your purpose. It's just a platform. So when you feel like you don't belong, not even in rooms you once prayed to be in, it's not a sign you're lost. It's confirmation you're being led. You weren't made to nest. You were made to soar. This kind of woman senses when the season is shifting. Her spirit starts itching when the time to move is near. She notices when the grace lifts off old assignments, even if they're still good. And instead of clinging to what's fading, she listens. She prepares. She answers the call. Because chosen women are not wired for complacency. They're stirred by destiny. After strength and longing come a different kind of mark. One less visible, but deeply powerful. Now we turn to a mark that is often carried in silence. It's misunderstood by many, sometimes even by the woman who bears it. And yet, it is one of the most powerful signs of divine favor. Mark 3. An unexplainable sensitivity to injustice and pain. There are women who feel the weight of the world even when they try not to. Who cry over things others brush off, who walk into rooms and feel spiritual tension before a word is spoken. These women often wonder, why do I feel so much? But the real question is, why does heaven trust you with such depth of feeling? Because you are not just emotional. You are entrusted. There is a divine tenderness within you that is not weakness. It's your assignment. You are heaven's intercessor. You are earth's responder. God has given you a heart that hears what others miss and tears that speak what words never could. Jeremiah was called the weeping prophet. He lamented over a nation that would not listen. He cried out for people who rejected him. And yet, God used his broken heart to deliver unshakable truth. His tears were not distractions. They were a prophetic force. Romans 8:26 says, "The Spirit himself intercedes for us through wordless groans." This is what the chosen woman understands intuitively. Her tears are not a flaw. They are a language of the Spirit. When she weeps in worship, heaven moves. When she groans in her quiet time, atmospheres shift. She mourns with those who mourn. not just out of empathy, but out of obedience. She can sense the hidden heaviness in others and will often intercede for people who will never know her name. She feels heartbreak she can't trace and prays over burdens she'll never take credit for. Why? Because she's been assigned to the hidden place. And yes, this mark can feel exhausting. There are moments when she's overwhelmed by emotions that aren't even hers. But this is not emotional instability. It's spiritual sensitivity. It's the signature of a woman who walks closely with the Spirit of God. Consider Abigail, wife of Nabal. Her husband was foolish, reckless, and arrogant. But Abigail was discerning. She felt the danger before it erupted. She moved in wisdom, spoke with grace, and her actions preserved the future of a King David. She saw beyond the moment and stepped in with divine instinct. That's what sensitivity looks like when it is Spirit-led. It protects, it intercedes, it shifts history. So to the woman who weeps in the shadows, who wakes up at 3 a.m., burdened to pray, who senses a storm in someone's soul long before the sky turns dark, you carry this mark. You are not too much. You are deeply chosen. Heaven hears your groans and hell fears your tears. Mark 4. She attracts unprovoked attacks. With great calling comes great conflict. The chosen woman is not placed in a garden. She's launched into a battlefield, and often the war begins long before her assignment is visible. Long before the crown comes the confrontation. Before the oil flows, the crushing begins. If you've ever faced opposition that seemed to come out of nowhere, rejection without reason, slander without truth, warfare without warning, you're not cursed. You're confirmed. The truth is, you threaten hell just by existing in purpose. Your yes to God sounds like thunder in the spiritual realm, and the brighter your light becomes, the more it attracts resistance. Not because you've done something wrong, but because you're carrying something right. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, authorities, and powers of this dark world." That betrayal wasn't just personal, it was prophetic. That attack didn't just sting, it signaled your significance. Consider the story of Jehosheba, a woman often forgotten, but divinely positioned. When Queen Athaliah tried to kill every royal heir to eliminate the line of David, Jehoshua secretly rescued baby Joash, hiding him for 6 years in the temple. She wasn't loud, she wasn't public, but her obedience preserved a bloodline. Do you see? Even behind the scenes, the chosen woman faces threats because her role, no matter how hidden, has generational impact. And then there's the pain of being misunderstood, the isolation that comes when people speak against you without cause. But remember what Jesus said in Luke 6:22, "Blessed are you when people hate you, when they exclude you and insult you and reject your name as evil because of the Son of Man. You're not being punished, you're being purified." And your reaction to the pressure is part of the preparation. Even before Jesus preached his first sermon, he was tempted in the wilderness, attacked not because of failure, but because of future. The enemy doesn't target the fruitless, he aims at the fruitful. So, when the warfare intensifies, don't shrink. Don't apologize for the fire in your bones. Don't water down your anointing just to make others comfortable. You weren't built to blend in. You were born to break through. If arrows are flying in your direction, it means your presence is pushing against darkness. If the attacks are unprovoked, it's because the enemy sees what's inside you. He's afraid of what you're becoming. The pressure you feel is not punishment, it's a sign that oil is about to flow. We've seen her weep with the world, endure battles, and live with a calling that will never let her settle. Yet, there is another mark, quieter, but piercing even deeper. The mark of isolation and misunderstanding. Mark 5. The pattern of being misunderstood and isolated. There is a peculiar ache in being surrounded yet unseen. To be present but invisible, to be heard but not understood. The chosen woman knows this ache well, not because she is unclear in her spirit, but because her calling is uncommon. She does not speak like others, move like others, or settle where others stop, so she is often misread. Her boundaries are mistaken for distance, her discernment for judgment, her peace for pride, and so she walks through rooms full of people feeling as though she doesn't belong anywhere. But what looks like rejection is often redirection. What feels like exile is often elevation in disguise. Even Jesus, the very Son of God, often withdrew to lonely places. Luke 5:16 tells us, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." He wasn't running from people. He was realigning with the Father. And if the Savior himself needed solitude to stay in sync with his purpose, how much more do we chosen women are not isolated because they are unworthy. They are isolated because they are being incubated. They are not being punished. They are being prepared. Look at Hagar wandering the desert, cast out by people she once served, alone, heartbroken, carrying a child and a burden too heavy for her shoulders. And yet in that wilderness, God revealed himself as El Roi, the God who sees me. Genesis 16:13. It was in her isolation that she received her revelation. Think of Elijah trembling in a cave, exhausted from the weight of his calling. He expected God to show up in wind, fire, or earthquake, but instead, the Lord came in a whisper. 1 Kings 1911-12. Because intimacy with God often happens in obscurity, not in applause, but in stillness. And then there's David, anointed but ignored, called but concealed, left in the fields while others feasted. But it was in those lonely places watching sheep that he learned how to worship, how to war, and how to walk with God. His isolation was not the absence of purpose, it was the birthplace of it. God often hides what he's healing. He conceals what he's cultivating. You may feel forgotten, but you are being formed. That rejection you felt when you didn't get the job, that silence after you poured out your heart, that friend group that slowly drifted away, it all feels like loss. But heaven is saying, I am making room. I am drawing you away, not to wound you, but to work in you. Isaiah 30:15 declares, "In quietness and trust is your strength. The silence is sacred. The solitude is strengthening. The wilderness is where God speaks loudest, not because he raises his voice, but because everything else gets quiet." So, if you find yourself in a season where no one seems to understand you, where you don't fit, where your voice echoes back to you unanswered, know this: you are not abandoned, you are being set apart. God is doing deep work in hidden places, and when he brings you out, you won't be the same. You'll emerge not wounded but weaponized, not bitter but better, not overlooked but overprepared. Mark 6. She grows in the dark, and now we come to a Mark so quiet, so hidden that even the woman herself may not realize she's carrying it. She grows in the dark. There are women right now who are laboring in silence. Mothers, caretakers, visionaries, ministry leaders, serving, sacrificing, sowing, and wondering, does any of this even matter? You feel overlooked, unseen, forgotten in the shadows while others stand in the spotlight. But hear this truth: you have not been buried. You have been planted. There is a holy difference. A buried thing is forgotten, but a planted thing is destined to rise. Isaiah 45:3 gives us this divine assurance. I will give you treasures hidden in the darkness, secret riches. I will do this so you may know that I am the Lord, the God of Israel, the one who calls you by name. God works in dark places, in secret places, in quiet corners of the world where no applause is heard. He is not building your life for performance. He is building your roots. And roots don't grow in sunlight. They grow in soil pressed down, hidden, and nourished where no one else sees. Consider Anna the prophetess. Luke 2 tells us she lived in the temple fasting and praying for decades. She was not famous. She had no grand audience. But when Jesus was brought to the temple as a baby, she was the one God entrusted to speak his destiny aloud. Years of faithfulness in silence prepared her for one holy moment of revelation. Think of the unnamed widow in 2 Kings 4. Left with debt and 2 sons, she cried out to the prophet Elisha. All she had was a little oil, but behind closed doors, in the privacy of her home, that oil multiplied. Her miracle didn't happen in front of a crowd, it happened in the dark. So to every woman who feels hidden, your labor matters. Your prayers matter. Your unseen obedience is producing an unseen strength. The nights you cried and still showed up the next morning. The times you served without thanks. The seeds you planted with no audience watching. God saw every single one. Don't despise your dark season, because it's in the dark that diamonds are formed. It's in the dark that faith becomes unshakable. And it's in the dark that God prepares to unveil his most radiant daughters. And now we arrive at the final mark. A mark that radiates through every battle survived. Every tear sown, every wilderness crossed. The chosen woman carries unshakable joy in dry places. She rejoices not because her circumstances are easy, but because her spirit is anchored. While others shrink under pressure, she smiles. While drought surrounds her, she declares, "It is well with my soul." Her joy is not naive optimism. It is holy defiance. It is the kind of joy that stares down lack, loss, and loneliness and still sings. Habakkuk once wrote, "Though the fig tree does not blossom, yet I will rejoice in the Lord." Habakkuk 3:17. That's not denial, it's declaration. The chosen woman's praise is not dependent on outcome. Like a tree planted by rivers of living water, she remains green in seasons of drought. Jeremiah 17:8. Her laughter is not light-hearted ignorance, it's spiritual warfare. Her joy is not shallow, it's her shield. She can grieve with hope, dance in delay, and worship while waiting because her soul is held, not by circumstance, but by Christ. Like the Proverbs 31 woman, she laughs at the days to come, not because they're easy, but because her peace is not circumstantial, it's supernatural. And when the enemy throws everything it has and she still throws up her hands in worship, that is when heaven roars and hell trembles. Because sorrow may be survivable, but joy is dangerous. Joy is proof the enemy failed to silence her spirit. It's proof she still knows who she is and whose she is. So now we see clearly these 7 hidden marks aren't signs of failure. They're evidence of divine favor. They don't reveal weakness. They confirm calling. These marks, your scars, your solitude, your burdens, your breakthroughs, your restless longing, your silent strength, your fierce joy are the fingerprints of God. They are heaven's validation, not man's applause. You have been formed in fire, refined in shadow, and prepared for purpose. As Paul writes in 2 Timothy 2:21, those who cleanse themselves will be instruments for special purposes, made holy, useful to the master, prepared to do any good work. And if these marks have stirred something within you, if you've seen pieces of yourself in everyone, then this is not just a revelation, it's an invitation. Don't rush past this moment. Let it settle into your spirit. Because knowing you're chosen is only the beginning. Living as a chosen woman is where the transformation unfolds.